Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something absolutely fundamental to modern conflict: command, control, and communications. C2, basically. We're looking at how the big players, the US, NATO, China, Russia, how they're all racing to, well, dominate the information space in any potential fight. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We've waded through, a ton of defense papers, doctrine docs, analysis, and what jumps out is this fierce competition. It's all about achieving what they call information dominance.
Right. And maybe more than that, it's about getting inside the opponent's decision cycle, making them react to you. So our mission for you, listening in, is really clarity. We want to pull out the key differences. How do their core military beliefs, their doctrines differ? What about their networks, secure comms, and, the really cutting-edge stuff like AI, quantum technology? How does that fit in?
Yeah, it's not just listening to tech, is it? It's the why. Why does this matter on the ground, strategically?
Exactly. Understanding the context. How these massive militaries plan to fight, coordinate, communicate, or disrupt communication.
And that really seems to be the central idea, doesn't it? Getting that information edge. Disrupting the other guy's C2 while making absolutely sure your own systems stay up and running, resilient, connected.
Okay, let's start with the U.S. Their whole approach, it kind of flows from their joint doctrine. They've got these core documents, joint publications, or JPs, that lay out how joint forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, etc., are commanded. And there's a really key one, JP 60, on the communication systems. It's been updated recently. Now they talk about the entire infrastructure as the DoD information network.
The
DoD.
The DoD, like the military's nervous system.
Pretty much, yeah. Everything flows through it.
And I noticed their thinking on information itself has really shifted. It used to be more about information operations, right? Affecting the enemy.
That's right, sort of siloed. But in 2022, that changed significantly. Now the doctrine is operations in the information environment, OIE.
OIE. And that's a big deal because
It makes information a core joint function. Just like moving troops or logistics or firing weapons, information is now officially at that level.
Okay, that's fundamental. And the big flashy program everyone talks about, JADC2.
Ah, yes. Joint All-Domain Command and Control. That's the centerpiece of their modernization effort.
The idea is to connect basically every sensor, satellites, drones, ground radar, whatever, to every shooter, meaning weapon systems, across all domains: air, land, sea, space, cyber. One unified network.
A single data-centric network, ideally. The goal is speed. To use AI, machine learning to sense, make sense, and act way faster than an opponent can even figure out what's happening.
It sounds incredibly powerful, but also incredibly complex. Doesn't linking everything create, like, a massive target?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It absolutely creates potential vulnerabilities. The whole concept hinges on building in resilience, redundancy, multiple pathways.
Well, it sounds like a good transition to NATO, because they have that complexity, plus the whole multinational layer baked in.
Exactly. NATO's primary challenge is making sure forces from, say, the US, Germany, Poland, Turkey can all plug in and operate seamlessly. Their main comms doctrine, HAP6, really hammers this point. Systems have to be effective, resilient, and persistent across dozens of nations.
How do they even manage that? It sounds like a nightmare.
Standardization is key. They have STANEGs, standardization agreements covering everything you can think of. And this framework called FMN, Federated Mission Networking.
FMN, like a standard plug.
Sort of. Think of it as the agreed-upon way to set up networks for a specific coalition mission. So when troops arrive, there's secure voice, email, chat. It all works together. FMN Spiral 3, for instance, defines those core services.
Okay, so standards get them talking. What about the actual tech? How do they stay connected globally?
Big investments there, especially in satellite communications. NATO's putting over €1 billion into secure a SATCOM between 2020 and 2034.
€1 billion.
Yeah.
Wow. For high-speed, secure links anywhere.
That's the goal. Beyond line-of-sight, high bandwidth. And they're also looking at squeezing more out of the radio spectrum they already use. There's R&D into things like in-band full duplex radio tech.
Which means?
Potentially doubling how much data you can push through battlefield radios without needing more frequency space. That's a huge tactical plus.
Double the data. And looking further out, future threats.
Quantum computing is on their minds. Their 2024 quantum technology strategy isn't about building quantum computers themselves, necessarily. It's mainly about defense. prioritizing post-quantum cryptography.
To make sure future quantum computers can't just break all their current encryption.
Precisely. Future-proofing the network against that potential threat down the line.
Okay, let's shift focus. Let's look east. China's undergone some massive military restructuring recently, right?
Huge changes. Starting around 2015, 2016, they launched these sweeping reforms. Power got really consolidated under the Central Military Commission, the CMC, and they scrapped the old military regions, replacing them with 5 joint theater commands, much more like the U.S. system.
More centralization, and that continued just this year, didn't it? With a strategic support force.
It did, quite dramatically.
Right.
In early 2024, they broke up the SSF. They created 3 new separate forces, all reporting directly to the CMC. There's now an information support force.
Dedicated just to C2 networks and infrastructure, like their fiber backbone, the NDCN.
Exactly. Then a distinct cyberspace force for cyber and electronic warfare ops, and an aerospace force for satellites, space stuff, counterspace.
That really shows how seriously they're taking the information domain, splitting it out like that.
Absolutely. And doctrinally, they're making a big leap, too. They used to talk about informatized warfare, basically, using information tech effectively.
Like information superiority.
Right. But now the goal is shifting towards intelligentized warfare.
Intelligentized,
Yeah.
meaning AI.
Yes, leveraging big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning for much faster decision-making, maybe even autonomous systems. It's a fundamental shift in how they envision future conflict.
And when it comes to securing their communications for all this, China seems to have a specific focus.
They definitely do. They've invested heavily in quantum communications. Remember the MISHIS satellite they launched back in 2016? That was for quantum key distribution, QKD.
QKD, the thing that's supposed to be unhackable?
Theoretically, yes. It allows you to create and share encryption keys in a way that, according to physics, is secure. Any attempt to eavesdrop disturbs the quantum state and is immediately detectable.
And they're building ground infrastructure for this too.
They are a nationwide network. If they can make it work reliably at scale, it could give their most critical command links potentially unbreakable encryption. That's a major potential advantage.
Okay, so China's pushing hard on AI and quantum. What about Russia? How do they approach C2?
Russia's structure is also quite centralized. The general staff holds tight control, directing operations through their joint strategic commands, which are kind of like regional commands. Their doctrine often gets referred to as information confrontation. It's a blend. It mixes precision strikes with cyber attacks, very strong electronic warfare, or EW, and information ops like propaganda, disinformation. They also emphasize the reconnaissance strike complex concept.
Linking sensors directly to long-range weapons.
Exactly. Quickly finding a target and hitting it from afar.
Now, you mentioned their EW is strong. Systems like Krasuka jammers. They're known for being able to disrupt enemy comms quite effectively.
They are formidable and offensive EW. That's a definite strength.
But there's a flip side, isn't there? Regarding their own communications.
Yes. That's been a widely observed vulnerability, especially at the tactical level. Secure comms seem to be a persistent weakness.
We saw reports coming out of the conflict in 2022, Russian units supposedly using unencrypted radios, even personal cell phones.
There were numerous credible reports of exactly that. Units falling back on insecure means when their encrypted systems perhaps failed, weren't available, or maybe weren't distributed widely enough to frontline troops.
And that obviously leads to intercepts, getting located.
Absolutely. It highlighted a significant gap, not just potentially in the equipment itself, but in communications discipline and how widely the secure gear is actually fielded and used under pressure, especially compared to NATO standards.
So they have modern systems, like the AZART radios.
They do, but the overall capability, the robustness of secure comms across the force, particularly when things get chaotic, it doesn't seem to be uniformly strong.
Which makes their strong EW capability almost a necessity. To level the playing field by denying others comms, because their own might be shaky.
That's a very plausible interpretation, yes. Relying on offensive EW becomes even more critical if your own secure links are potentially fragile.
Okay, stepping back a bit. We're seeing these big overarching strategic ideas emerge across the board, like integrated deterrence in the U.S.
Right. That was the cornerstone of the 2022 U.S. National Defense Strategy. It's this idea that deterring conflict isn't just about military power anymore.
It's broader.
Much broader. It means integrating all instruments of national power, diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions, information campaigns alongside military readiness, and doing it in close coordination with allies.
Kind of a whole-of-nation plus allies approach to prevention.
That's a good way to put it. And that idea connects directly to multi-domain operations, MDO.
MDO.
Yeah.
Touched on that with JGC too. Coordinating across land, sea, air, space, cyber.
And the electromagnetic spectrum, don't forget that. MDO is about achieving synergy, making actions in one domain enhance effects in another, seamlessly. It's the operational concept driving how most Western militaries are trying to transform themselves for future warfare, creating dilemmas for the adversary that they can't easily solve.
Then this blurring of lines, it extends down into that murky area below traditional war, right? The gray zone.
Definitely. That's where you see hybrid warfare concepts play out.
Hybrid warfare.
Yeah.
Using lots of different tools simultaneously.
Exactly. Cyber attacks, maybe economic coercion, spreading disinformation, political meddling, perhaps using proxy forces, all synchronized, but kept just below the level that would trigger a large-scale conventional response.
And information warfare seems like a key part of that gray zone activity.
It's absolutely central, and it's evolving incredibly fast. We're now seeing adversaries experimenting with and likely starting to use AI tools for information ops.
Like generative AI for creating deep thinks and things like that.
Precisely. To create realistic-looking fake videos or audio, generate highly targeted disinformation at scale, amplify false narratives, sow discord.
Which makes figuring out what's real and what's not even harder.
It does, and it's driving this need for what some call cognitive resilience in societies, being able to critically assess information and resist manipulation, especially these sophisticated AI-powered campaigns.
So AI is a tool for InfoWar. But it's also becoming central to C2 itself, isn't it?
No, absolutely. That's the other side of the coin. The AI race is fully on.
We see the U.S. with things like Project Maven for analyzing intelligence imagery and the AI components being built into JADC2 for decision support.
And China explicitly aiming for intelligentized warfare, making AI central to their entire military modernization. They see it as a way to potentially leapfrog existing capabilities.
But putting AI deeper into command and control, that must raise some serious questions, right? Especially at the strategic level.
Profound questions and very serious risks. Experts are increasingly worried about what they call the cyber-nuclear nexus.
The intersection of cyber attacks and nuclear weapons C2.
Exactly. The fear is, what if a really severe cyber attack targets a nation's nuclear command, control, and communication systems during a major crisis?
Could it be mistaken for an incoming attack?
Right.
Or paralyze their ability to respond, leading to miscalculation?
That's the nightmare scenario. That misinterpretation or system paralysis under cyber attack could lead to unintended, potentially catastrophic escalation.
Given those stakes, are there safeguards being discussed?
There are discussions, yes. And significantly, despite all their rivalry, the U.S. and China actually made a joint statement in late 2024. They affirmed that AI should never be given sole authority over nuclear launch decisions. Human control must be maintained.
That's somewhat reassuring, I guess. Acknowledging the danger, at least. Hashtag tag tech conclusion and synthesis.
So if we try to pull all these threads together, what's the big picture?
Well, it seems crystal clear that every major power sees information dominance and resilient C2 as absolutely paramount. It's the foundation for everything else.
No doubt. But how they're pursuing it differs. You could summarize the competitive landscape maybe as maturity versus speed.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the U.S. and NATO, they have the most globally deployed, extensively tested, and probably most redundant networks. They've learned hard lessons in conflicts over decades. Plus, their doctrine generally allows for more flexibility, mission command, allowing lower levels to take initiative if comms are cut.
Okay, battle-hardened maturity. And China.
China represents incredible speed and highly centralized modernization. They're pushing the technological envelope, especially with quantum comms, maybe AI integration. But their systems are largely untested in actual combat. That's the big unknown.
And Russia. What's the takeaway there?
Russia's experience is almost a cautionary tale, isn't it?
How so?
Their strength in offensive EW is undeniable, but it seems undermined by those tactical communication vulnerabilities we talked about, and perhaps the rigidity that comes from very centralized control.
Right. It shows that having advanced tech on paper doesn't mean much if it's not reliable in the field, or if the doctrine and discipline aren't there to use it effectively under fire.
Exactly. So the West is maybe evolving its proven systems, making them faster, more integrated. China is trying to leapfrog technologically, betting heavily on AI and quantum. And Russia highlights that fundamental requirement. Secure, reliable communications and the training to use them remain critical. No matter how fancy the EW or strike systems are, discipline matters.
So, as you, our listener, are thinking through all this, here's a final thought to chew on. We've talked about these incredibly complex, interconnected systems of systems being built, JDC2, China's integrated command platform, whatever Russia is developing. But does that very complexity, that deep integration, also create a potentially catastrophic single point of failure? Could one really successful debilitating hack or a truly widespread and powerful jamming campaign now have the potential to paralyze a military's nervous system faster and more completely than ever before? Considering this global race for AI integration and quantum-proof networks, think about which approach, maybe a highly centralized one or perhaps an extremely complex interdependent one, might actually be the most brittle if the communication links were suddenly and totally severed. Something to consider as we wrap up this deep dive.